Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. And we are meeting once again with lecture 27 of Business English. And students, we are almost reaching the end of our course, where we have learned with where we are done with most of our business document discussion regarding business documents, technical documents, business scenarios, the skills that you need in business. One important skill that we are going to learn today, we are recently done with our job interview skills, and previous 2 to 3 lectures were regarding job interview skills, and that is one very important skill because that helps you be in the field and practically be aware of what you know about business. However, when you get in the business, there is one skill that is which is very much required, and you have to be an effective user of that if you want to survive in the business scenario. This is presentation skills. So today's lecture is going to be about presentation skills, and we will learn what are these skills, and are these skills about utilizing eye contact, maintaining eye contact? Is it about body language? Is it about voice and delivering message? Is it about how can we use our voice for different kinds of, to generate different understandings and develop and give different meanings in a presentation? What are these 3 A's about presentation, and how do we develop and use visual aids, and what are these visual aids developed for? And then how do we respond to questions, and do we need to have questions by the end of each presentation? Why? And if we have questions, what if we don't like the question? How do we answer to that question? The one we don't like, or the one we don't have answer for? Well, all these things we are going to discuss in today's talk. So today's talk is going to be a primer to learn about, to be trained for presentation skills, and I hope that we will have 2 to 3 lectures in the series regarding presentation skills, because that needs time and attention. So I hope you are prepared to move on. Let's move on and see what do we have to learn about presentation skills, and how can we acquire this skill or set of skills. Well, first of all, let me start with some highlights of presentation skills. Well, while hard work and good ideas are essential to success in any field of life, in any domain of life, let's say if we are talking about business, your ability to express those ideas and get others to listen to you, understand you, be convinced by your ideas, agree to you, or join you is just as important as the idea is. If you keep an idea, if you have a wonderful idea, but you're not able to present it, you're not able to convey it, and you're not able to, or if you're able to convey it, you're not able to make people agree to it or convince them or persuade them, then there is no point keeping that idea and keeping that inside and letting it grow. No. So if it is important to know about things, have knowledge, it is very important to be able to present that knowledge and present that wisdom and present your skills. So much of this verbal expression will be one-on-one or in small groups. Whenever we are supposed to talk, we're supposed to talk all the time when we are working, or when we are employed, or when we are in business, in the field of business. We are supposed to talk all the time. What we do, we talk all the time. Whether we are doing it verbally or we are doing it non-verbally, whether we are writing it or we are speaking it, we are talking, we are describing, we are narrating, we are explaining, we are justifying, we are developing and giving arguments. We are trying to convince, or we are getting convinced. So we are into talk sessions all the time. But periodically you will be involved in more formal and public speaking in front of large number of people. You are expected to be prepared to convey your message to large number of people as well, and for that you need to have presentation skills. And how do you give these presentations? this is one thing that we need to learn, one thing we need to train ourselves about. If I say that people are born with this skill, this may not be right. Well, yes, some people are born with the skill of, this rhetorical skill and this skill of articulation and this skill of talking in a way that people would like to listen to and people would like to get convinced. However, this ratio is very small, and this is a tiny number of people that we can look at around. Most of these people in this field who are doing excellent talks and convincing people and progressing and growing in their field of presentation, they learn it. They acquire this skill. They practice this skill. They polish this skill. So either you possess it or you learn it. If you want to survive, you have to do one of or two of these things. Sometimes people do have good articulating, good speaking skills, but they need to refine them. They need to know about the hows and whats of presentation skills. So I hope that today's talk will enable you to find out what is in you regarding your speaking skills and how much you are aware of and how much you are unaware of that you possess. You need to take it out, polish it, and keep it ready for your presentation skills. Let's move on. Well, if this thought makes you nervous that you're not alone, most of the students think that, well, I think I don't have very good communication skills or presentation skills. Or somebody would come to me and, when I assign this task in the classroom and tell my students, okay, well, you did this wonderfully, and tomorrow you're going to have your presentations. You understand the idea, do you? They will say, yes. If I ask you about things, are you prepared? Yes. Can you talk about and can you convince tell your other students, what do you know about this topic? Yes. All right. Tomorrow you have your presentation. And everybody's down. So what is happening? They'll come to me one by one in my office personally and they'll say, Madam, I know this idea and I'm pretty much confident that I understand it, but I'm shy. I can't speak. When I start speaking, I forget. And I don't know how to speak in front of people. Or when they are speaking, they tend to, finish it up quickly, and this makes them run on the idea and they skip the main thing. So they'll say, see, I want to do it again. I couldn't do well. Can I do it again, please? And second time, can I do it one more time? So they are never happy with their presentation skills. But if this is it with you too, this is not abnormal. At this stage where you are developing your skills, you are refining your skills. So if you feel uncomfortable with something, no problem. However, yes, you have diagnosed your issue that you are uncomfortable with this skill. That means it needs learning, it needs practice, it needs refining. So pull up your socks, you're going to work on it and you are going to develop the skills. Many speakers lack the skills and confidence to make effective presentations, so this is something very normal. However, what many speakers do not understand is the point that they need to work it out instead of, leaving it aside and covering it with something as a thing to be, to be at on the back bench. You don't pay attention to, or hide it as your negative, or hide it as your problem. No, it's not a disease. It's just one thing that you do not know, or you could not get an opportunity to practice, or you could not get exposure. You don't know how it is to learn it, or how can you practice it. So now it's an opportunity for you to learn and practice your presentation skills. Well, we have been, truly, honestly, we all have been victims of speakers who put us to sleep. I remember, well, yes, in my college and during my university, there have been people, even now, especially during my academics, there had been people who would make me sleep most of the time. And at that time, I would think, well, don't they know that we are tired? Well, despite knowing how ineffective many speakers are, many of us have found that despite the best intentions, we haven't fared much, we haven't fared much better. So, we know the topic and the ideas were written down, but the presentation still didn't go well. What can be, the reason behind it, that people know about their things. They're pretty well aware of their ideas. And then one more interesting thing is that they can write them down too good, or they would have definitely have prepared wonderful PowerPoint presentations, but when it comes to talking about that, there they lose. Was it the way you delivered the presentation? Is it something about delivering presentation, or is it something about that audience are not interested? What is it about? What is the problem? Okay, now with this slide, I'll take you back to the first few lectures where we talked about communication skills, and we talked about the process of communication, and I talked about the barriers in communication. So you remember that I made you notice different aspects, different corners of a communication process where the barriers can exist. The barriers can exist on the end of presenter, on the end of being presented to, on the end of the message itself, on the end of the visual aid, on the end of the atmosphere, or the room, or the environment that you are in, or the end of any fifth participant that is a part of maybe visible or invisible part of that communication process. So barriers can be everywhere there, whosoever is part of the communication, whether it's a human being, or it's a gadget, or it's a system of communication. Barriers are there, but a skilled and efficient presenter, a trained presenter, is one who can pick up the barrier, understand it, and solve it, either at the spur of the moment, or he or she can predict that these can be the problems, and he knows how to handle that, or she knows how to handle that. They have backup plans. This is what your training helps you in doing. We always come across challenging situations, or maybe unpredictable situations, but among us are those who we call effective presenters, who can deal with these unpredictable situations in a way that they are able to go through it, and they're able to go through it successfully. All right. George Bernard Shaw, he says, the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has been accomplished. I know what I know that I have to convey it, and somehow when I'm conveying it, at some point I get this assurance that I conveyed it. However, unfortunately, the thing is that I could not. So this is the failure, the biggest problem with communication process, that either you have been unable to get the feedback that the message is not conveyed, or you assume that it is conveyed and you're not ready to accept the reality that it is not. Always be open to criticism. That is one thing about learning, that first of all, accept that you need to learn something. The very first thing is to accept that I need to learn something. Once you accept, you will open up. And when you open up, it gets very easy to learn. When you keep pretending that, no, I don't need to learn, I already know it, and you are trying to, peep into situations and try to get from something from here, get from something from there, but still you're not learning, because you're not considered to be a learner. And you're not in the learning frame of mind. So accept that this has been a problem. And if you go through an unsuccessful experience of a presentation, accept it. It was an unsuccessful presentation, and sit down and think what went wrong, where and why. Okay? And if you're able to answer these 4 W's, 4 whats, you are training yourself for a better presentation tomorrow. So be an observer, be an expert, be a trainee, be a trainer at the same time. You are training yourself. At this point, when you all are mashallah graduates, or maybe postgraduate students, you would understand that real learning is training yourself for self-learning. A good learner, an effective learner, I call, is the one who has the liberty to train him or herself, and who knows how he or she learns, what is the way that he or she would like to learn, and where are the resources lying that can be used, and how do I approach that resources and I learn it, and how do I ensure myself that this is learned, and then I practice. All your life you cannot rely on people, you cannot rely on teachers, because they're not there all the time. Yes, teachers can provide you with a guideline, and especially it is especially for the learners who are graduate or postgraduates, because after this point you are a learner who is expected to be a self-learner, who is self-motivated to know about things, and your research starts from this point. That is why a graduate degree involves research. A research degree trains you to be a self-learner, to dig into the things, know the facts, and learn them, to add into your knowledge. That is why you are trained for research, and that is one important aspect of making you go through your research degrees. So, do not stay in illusions if you want to survive in the field of business, especially if you are dealing with presentations most of the time. Try to kill your illusions and come into the reality. So find out if you think that I could not present well today, or maybe I don't want to present tomorrow. Tomorrow is my presentation. Oh my God, I don't want to present. Okay, I'll take an off, or I'll go to my friend's place, or I prefer sleeping. Why are you doing it? You need to understand it, that there is a reason. Why are you afraid of presenting? Is this that you cannot speak? Is that you do not know your topic? Is that you do not like presenting? But whatever it is, you need to understand that that's a professional skill that you need to acquire. And in order to acquire a skill, you need to make it adjustable. You need to work with it. You need to do some compromises. You need to make yourself, agreeable to do it. All right, so what is your vision of the ideal presenter in our environment? Now, once I have this assurance that I need to learn something. How do we learn it? We idealize skills. We idealize people who possess these skills. So I will look at maybe one of my teachers. I will look at maybe my sister, my brother, who I wonder how he or she talks so confidently, how he or she transfers, the idea that is to be transferred, and how successfully. What is the key? Is there something different from that person, or maybe he is better qualified than me, or what is it? What makes him or her, doing this job very well? I need to note down all the characteristics. So let's have a comparison between you and him, between you or her, and find out what is so different. Or maybe it's one of your colleagues and one of your class fellows. Now, if you look at the educational background, you both have the same kind of qualification. If you look at the communication skills, maybe you both have the same kind of communication skills. You both have the same kind of background. But what is it that makes one of you a better speaker? Find that out. Probably this will help you to diagnose the issue, to diagnose the problem. And once you are able to diagnose the problem, you'll be in a better position to solve it. So this is a self-assessment that you are doing. Note down all the positives, note down all the negatives. What are to be done for a good presentation? What are not to be done for the good presentation? Unless you have some checklist with you, unless you have some formal training as you are going to have now, what you could do is that you could, we are all the time observing people, and we are all the time judging people. Though we should not be judgmental, but somehow we do it, naturally. If we have 3 teachers and 3 of them are coming to our class every day, we know that we like somebody more than the other. And why do we like that one? Particularly there will be a reason behind that. So I need to note down, if I like somebody's presentation skill, what is it that I like more about it? Maybe the person is loud enough and I can clearly understand him or her. Maybe the person is clear in articulation. Maybe the person has command over the subject. Or maybe the person knows how to talk. Or maybe, all these maybes, pluses and minuses, note them down. What you are doing, you are making a practical checklist to see if you can have all the pluses and you can get rid of all the negatives. That's one way of self-assessment and creating a self-checklist for your own training. Secondly, The other way of learning is improving is that you are trained for it. As you are going to have one training, you learn about what are the things to be done, what are the things not to be done, and you are given some models, you are given some opportunity to present and learn from your own mistakes. So you are getting trained by knowing, by acquiring knowledge, by getting into situation, by trial and error analysis, and by doing and then learning what went wrong and what went well. So, but in each situation, what is important is self-motivation. If you are motivated, you will eventually learn. If not today, tomorrow. If not tomorrow, day after tomorrow. But the thing is, if you are motivated for something, nothing is impossible. You can do anything in the world and you can learn anything in the world. All right. W.B. Yeats says, I always think a great speaker convinces us not by force of reasoning, but because he is visibly enjoying the beliefs he wants us to accept. Once you show that you have strong belief in something that you are saying, you are convincing your reader. Basically, the tact of convincing people, the tact of persuading people does not lie in the fact that how forcefully you are telling your reader that this is right, this is wrong, right? No. It is shown, it is projected in your attitude that you are so comfortable with. Something you believe in becomes a part of your personality. And when you talk about it, you talk so naturally, it comes so spontaneously out of you that it shows that you believe in it and you really do that. You don't need to be forceful in telling people that you believe in it and they should believe in it too. Force does not work here. Your attitude works here. All right. Now, what we will discuss in presentation skills as a formal training, we would want to know, what is this eye contact? Although I have talked about it when we were doing our communication skills, but today we are going to learn about eye contact, maintaining it, keeping it, utilizing it for our own benefit when we are doing presentations. So we will learn about the body language, the use of body language and voice to their advantages in a presentation. We will learn how can we apply 3A's in preparing content for presentation. We will develop visual aids and we will know how to develop visual aids. And we can respond to questions in an effective manner. How we can do that? All right. You need to know that the general competencies that count for a good presentation skill, are interpersonal communication skills, your professionalism, and your practice-based learning and improvement. You learn from trial and error. You put yourself into challenges, learn, do. Maybe you don't do good. Maybe you do good. If it is good, good enough. If it is not good, it was an opportunity to improve, and you improve for the next time. So all these three things go hand in hand: your communication skills, your professionalism, and your putting yourself, taking this initiative of putting yourself into challenging situations and learning from there. All right. Then, well, one thing that I would talk about here is the podium panic. It's double PP. It's PP. What is podium panic? Well, for some people, the thought of giving a presentation is more frightening than falling off a cliff, financial difficulties, snakes, and even death. What is that? Well, what does it mean? It's not the presentation. It's not the presentation skill. It's not the content. Even it's not the PowerPoint. I have all of it. But still I am not ready to present. Why? You see, some people, or maybe most of us, naturally, we have this fear of being observed, being watched, and this idea that I am being observed by somebody with a pair of eyes that is looking at me constantly, quiet, and I am having this monologue, makes me feel very nervous. And in situation when this pair of eye gets double, triple, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times, 50 times, and 100 times, that means there are hundreds of people. Imagine what would be my panic, that 100 people looking at me, focusing at me, and I'm speaking. this idea makes me very nervous, and I start feeling butterfly in my tummy, and my legs start shaking and trembling, and I'm sweating and I'm shivering. That's very normal. That's very normal. I tell you, I swear, it's very normal, because it's natural. Whenever you feel that you are being observed, you are being watched, you get conscious of the fact, and you unconsciously you start behaving unnatural. That's not what you are, because you know that you are being evaluated, you are being examined, and this idea makes you frightened. This is frightening, right? And how to, overcome this thing? And this podium panic, standing behind a rostrum and then talking, it gets even troublesome. Sometimes people feel easy if they are told that, okay, you need to talk, but it's there are many people sitting, you can stay, keep sitting and then talk about it. And instead of standing, they will feel comfortable in sitting. Okay, so I'm sitting now, maybe this part of the world cannot look at me, so only I have to deal with this part, or maybe I can hide myself behind this person and only my voice is audible. All right, relief, I cannot be seen. So this relief tells you that you avoid people seeing you. Why? Why do you feel that? So this is the podium panic. It has got nothing to do with your knowledge, with your skills. It is basically this fright, that you are scared of you being observed. And this is very normal. So what I tell my students how to overcome this panic is that, first of all, if people are attending presentation, you have audience there, and if you are standing at a point where you are delivering the presentation, that means that you have that skill of delivering that. And people who are sitting there, they have to listen to you because you have something to say, something that they need to listen to, or something that they have to listen to. So you have a plus point. Maybe what you are saying is not something that they already know. It's new. Or maybe the intensity with the knowledge you have is not as, not what they know about it. There is something positive with this, that you know better, or maybe you know equally good. Okay, so have this confidence that if you are standing here, you are standing here with a plus point. So feel confident. Secondly, when people are looking at you, they're not really looking at you. Most of the time, they look at you for 10 seconds or 15 seconds, then they are looking somewhere else. Although their eyes will be focused on you, their head is there, but their brain, they are not there. Maybe they are looking at something else. Or maybe they are looking at the button of your coat. They are thinking something else. They are thinking about the point that you just mentioned, or they are looking at the PowerPoint, or something else. All the 100 people are not looking and focusing at you each second that you are presenting. Or even if they are doing, what's wrong with that? If you are standing there, you have a potential to talk. So you talk. You get comfortable with your topic, and you can do it. If you are well prepared, and if you know how to deal with audience, if you know the rules of communication skills, the tactics and strategies, you can very well do it. So what I do with my students, because initially most of them, almost all of them are shy of speaking, I make them talk. First, I make them speak. When they are comfortable in speaking in target language, I make them speak in audience by sitting on the chair. Okay, when they get comfortable by sitting on the chair and speaking, then I make them stand over there, not bring them on the stage. They take some time, then they come to the stage in the next step. When they are on the stage, maybe I call 2 of them or 3 of them together as a group or as a pair to talk about something. When they are comfortable with that, the next step is to make them talk alone. And then taking them to podium, to stand behind the rostrum, and then making them present. And I don't make them present right from the beginning with a PowerPoint. I make them present their ideas, and I give them a small topic. I make them think about it, brainstorm, and make cards, flashcards, and write points on them. Now, how do they write their points? Either into words or into phrases, and they place their 6. I ask them to make 6 to 8 cards in the beginning, and they place these 6 cards on the table, and with each card has maybe a couple of words or maybe a single phrase of 3 to 4 words on it. And then they look at the card and they talk. Slowly and gradually, when they are drilled, I make them do it without cards. When they are drilled, when they have the drill of practice of this thing, then in the final stages, they are taught about how to make their PowerPoint presentations and then how to synchronize their talk with the PowerPoint presentations. So it's a training program that enables you to be an effective speaker, along with the philosophy that you and with the attitude that you have for learning this skill. So if you have podium panic, don't worry. It's not something that'll stick to you. You can get rid of it easily. Dealing with podium panic. So some techniques that can help you is audiences are forgiving. Well, audience is always audience. They are not judge. They are not going to hang you. If you make a mistake, you are a human being, you can make a mistake. So make it, no problem. They're not going to hold you and hang you until death, or they are not going to fire you if you could not do good in one presentation. Although at times it is that sensitive, but most of the times it is not. So consider and be aware of the fact that audience, they're not listening to each word, or if they do, they are very forgiving. They're as human as you are, so they are considerate. They are understanding that this is the situation. So if something goes wrong, that's normal. Just be comfortable with that. Nervousness is usually invisible. And if you think that your nervousness, if you are feeling nervous, or if your legs are shaking, or don't worry, audience cannot see your nervousness. You just need to do not say it that you are nervous. I give you one example. What happens that when I call these students come on the podium and talk about something, they will start with a very motivated poll, energetic start. Well, Assalamu alaikum, my name is Hamid Khan, and I'm going to talk about this topic, and then they forget about it, and then they later on tell me that they got all blank. There was nothing in their head, although they are very well prepared, first. Secondly, they would say, I'm sorry, I forgot. And I tell them, never say sorry. Don't say sorry. You don't need to be sorry. I do not know what you have memorized. What you are going to say is an entirely new thing for me. I do not know your sequence. I do not know the number of points that you are going to make. So if you forget one point, let it go. Move on. Talk about something else. Or maybe if the point comes on later in your head, you can say, oh yes, I forgot mentioning one point and it was this. Say it then and there. And if you are nervous, don't tell me that you are nervous. You say, you're talking, say, Madam, I'm very nervous. Don't tell me that you're nervous, because I cannot see that unless you show it to me. Right? So, nervousness is usually invisible, so be comfortable. Even if you're nervous, we all get nervous in our situations, but after a minute or so when you start your presentation, the nervousness goes away and you create your own comfort zone on the stage. Be yourself. Don't try to pretend, because when you are trying to pretend, some people, especially some new students, they try to pretend, they try to follow people. Well, yes, it's good to keep role models, but when you blindly make these role models your goal, then you leave your own self behind somewhere, your own creativity, your own innovation, it stays behind somewhere, and then you're not able to keep up your fabricated self for long. Somewhere in the middle you drop it unconsciously, and then you start speaking the way you are, start behaving the way you are, and then it gives a clear contradiction, a conflict between what you were and what you are behaving now. Practice deep breathing, visualizing technique. Well, breathing technique is very important because it makes you feel relaxed. Even now, if you sit down and keep your hands straight, and breathe like this. When you inhale a lot of oxygen, when this oxygen goes into your head and into your body, it makes you feel relaxed and calm, and that is very important, because what happens that when you are going to present, when you have a presentation to make, you are taking short breath. You get short of oxygen, and then when you get short of oxygen, your body creates panic, and you get into stress. It's a physical stress as well as mental stress. You get into physical stress situation. So to release that stress, breathe deep. And once you are done with that, you will feel relaxed. And then I would suggest one more thing. If you're going to present, soon before your presentation, don't stay standing for long and don't stay sitting for long, because when you are sitting, the blood movement, the blood circulation in your body tends to move in one part of your body more than the other. So when you will stand up quickly and go to podium, you may feel that you don't have that very good blood circulation in your lower part of body, in your legs. So before going to podium, try to stand up for a minute and try to let the body circulation get normal in your body, and then you can move on to podium. And begin in your comfort zone. You don't need to just go to the podium or behind the rostrum and start like a Zoom. No, you don't need to. You can take a minute to make yourself comfortable. Look at the audience, smile. Set your setup, whether you are going to use your flashcards or visual aids as a PowerPoint, or maybe overhead projector, transparencies, whatever you're going to use. Take a minute, set it up. Try to take a few steps on the stage if you have. Go from right to left or left to right if you can afford to. And this is your territory that you are going to be comfortable on. So make yourself comfortable. Take a minute and then start your presentation. And if you are going to present formally, where you cannot go at the point, like there are 100 people sitting and you cannot really walk around on the stage, make sure that you go to the stage before the audience come in for presentation in the presentation hall or presentation room. Go to the stage, make yourself comfortable with everything, with the rostrum, stand behind that. Make sure that when I stand, it's a good height of the rostrum. I'm not hidden or it's not too short. I have a comfortable sitting. Speak up something. Make your voice come back and you can hear it. Sense if you have any nervousness. When you will speak for 2-3 minutes before the audience come in the environment where you are going to speak, trust me, it is going to make you feel wonderful, comfortable, confident. All right. Check out the room in advance. So this is what I'm talking about. Check out the room in advance. Check out the environment. Check out the system you're going to work with. Your computer, if you have a computer. Normally, nowadays, we are using computer and PowerPoints as visual aids and to keep a record of the presentation. So check, is everything working fine? Then concentrate on the message. Begin with a slow, well-prepared introduction. Have a confident and clear conclusion, and be prepared and practice. These are some do's, I would say some religious do's that you have to do for a good presentation. Practice makes a man perfect. Practice makes somebody perfect. You need to practice. You need to look at your slides, if you have made any, look at your flashcards, look at the points that you have made, and think about it, that how long my presentation is going to be. If it's time restricted, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Okay, if I have 5 minutes to speak and I have 15 points to make, how much time I can give to each point? Calculate it. Now, if I have, hardly 30 seconds or maybe 20 seconds for a point, am I going to just talk about it and run on it? Or am I going to give one illustration? One example would be enough. Will this be, if I have 3 examples to make, I need to pick up one that is shorter, simple, easy to understand, and that supports my idea. So, how will you learn these things? You will learn these things when you practice it. All right, now with this talk, I hope you are ready to go for your first visual comprehension of the day. It's a small, tiny clip that you're going to watch, and this will interest you if you have been a student recently, or you still are a student who is who got opportunities to present in your classroom. You will see what are the do's and don'ts of presentations, and this video is specially made for in a classroom setting, and you will find students to presenting, but they are doing things that are presented as do's and don'ts of the presentation. So go ahead, let's watch this video and make your own list of what is to be done and what is not to be done. Go ahead and watch the video.
Okay, now I will introduce something about planning of a presentation.
Hey, it's organizing.
Planning.
Organizing.
Planning.
Let me do it. Okay, organizing is organize the team well.
What is an oral presentation? By this time,
you are now familiar with the main sections of an academic paper. You understand how to structure
1 minute left.
the body and the conclusion. Your written instruction sets the issue clearly. The body develops the argument with sound logical reasoning and carefully selected example. The body includes...
Time's up.
Okay, the next is oral presentation. In this part, we're going to do how to do the oral presentation, like we're going to do the presentation in the workshop class.
What happened? It's not working.
I don't know, it's your fault.
No, we have to check this. What should I do?
I don't know.
Damn.
Division and classification are two methods of organizing and explaining information through division.
All right, did you enjoy that? That was so funny. But unfortunately, these are all the things that we experience and we observe all the time, that are there. And the thing to learn is that take these opportunities and this exposure to train yourself for what is to be done and what is not to be done when you are presenting officially, whether it's an academic situation or it's a professional situation. Well, now you must have watched and you must have observed that people were hiding their faces with books in front of their face. That's what students do. They try to keep a paper either here, or they would like to hide themselves behind the podium or rostrum so somebody cannot see them. Keeping an eye contact is very important. You need to maintain an eye contact. How do we do that? Well, when we are talking to one person sitting in front of us, or when we are talking to more of these people, it's a group of people, or it's a large group of people, we try to shift our gaze. We try to keep an eye contact. It gives a very personalized feeling, as if you're not talking to something invisible. You're talking to these human beings, and I will feel good when somebody's talking to me and looking at me at the same time. However, keeping an eye contact does not mean I give us, still, a gaze, an extended one. It may offend people, so I need to keep a very soft gaze, and I keep on shifting it on. If there are more people, I need to shift on, on them. You must be, if you recall it from your experience, When you were a student in a classroom, you would remember that when teacher is talking, she's looking at all of you together, and when she looks at you, you feel that if she's talking to me, you feel important. So that is what is the feeling that you convey it to your listeners, to your audiences, that they are important to you, and you are talking to them. You're not reading something, you are talking to them. Never let them out of your sight. Keeping this eye contact will benefit you in many ways. It will not only develop that positive, receptive attitude on the audience's end, they will feel, motivated to receive what you are giving. Secondly, you'll be able to read what is happening, you'll be able to catch the feedback, because when we are feeling confused, when we are feeling upset, when we are feeling we're not getting something, when we are feeling bored, when we are feeling so on and so forth, when we have these feelings, somehow they come onto our face. And we have these, like, you watched that in the previous clips as well. You remember that clip that we watched for our interview session. You watched the lady when she was getting confused by what the boy is talking about. Where are these documents? So she showed it on her face. So when people are not getting your questions, you will find some confused features on their face. So you can get that people are not getting my point. What you can do is you can quickly come up with a strategy. You repeat, you confirm that they are understanding you or not, and there you can use some prompts. Well, are you understanding? Is my point clear to you? These affirmative, these confirmative sentences let you understand whether they will nod their head, or they will give you some kind of gestures as they are getting it. Or what you can do is that if you find all of them confused, you can repeat the same thing in some different words. You can paraphrase your information and deliver it again, so to see whether people are getting it or not. So this gives you a quick feedback. Keeping an eye contact gives you a quick feedback. Number 2. Number 3. It keeps people on the track. When I would feel that my teacher is looking at me, I would be, on to the task of listening. And I will, even if I'm not listening, I will pretend that I'm listening. So even when I'm pretending, I have to listen to something. So people will stay on track, and they will not lose their attention. So keeping an eye contact is always goes in the speaker's benefit, in speaker's favor. Looking them in the eye makes them feel that they are influencing what you say. Okay. Eye contact allows the presentation to approximate conversation. The audience feels much more involved. As I said, they will feel the importance, and they will show the right type of participation that they need to do. So now what about this body language? Lean on or grip the podium. Well, no, you're not supposed to do it. Rock or sway in place. Rocking, and stand immobile or standing still at a point, or use a single gesture repeatedly, or examine or bite your fingernails, cutting your fingernails. No, this is your body language. When you're doing these things, some people, when there's, you remember from this funny clip, some students were standing and they were rocking themselves like this. So if you're doing that, this is not a professional way of doing, like, presenting yourself. You are presenting yourself. People are observing you. If you're biting your nails, or if you're playing with something, or you keep something in your hand, you keep on, fiddling with that, or you are walking too much on the stage from one point to another, like a tiger, like an anxious tigress. That's again a negative point. However, you cannot stand still too. Like you are standing still for 30 minutes or for 15 minutes. No, you can move a little. Make yourself comfortable, but be sure everything has to be moderate. Don't do too much of anything, because then it becomes a negative. All right. Cross your arms in front of your chest. Well, you are standing like this. Now, what kind of posture you are keeping? What kind of behavior you are showing? All right. Then obviously practice or stilted gestures. Chewing gum or eat candy. Well, no, you cannot do that. click or tap your pen, pencil or pointer again and again on something, again it shows some kind of nervousness. Some people, they have these habits and they practice these habits unconsciously, but the problem is that you are being observed, so you have to be particular about these things. Leaning to the microphone, going too close to microphone, or shuffle your notes unnecessarily. Shuffling your notes, it shows the nervousness. Tighten your tie or otherwise play with your clothing. Crack your knuckles, doing this. Jungle change or key in your pocket, like you are playing with your key in the pocket or with your ring in your hand, or doing something, using your hair to, girls, they often do this when they are talking. So what you are doing, you are presenting to people who are paying attention to the message that you are delivering. If you're doing such things, it will distract their attention, and they are not listening to you. If they won't listen to you, that means your message is not conveyed. And if your message is not conveyed, it's going to be a failure, communication failure, and this may cost you and your company or your agenda. Well, this is one very important aspect of your presentation: voice. Quality of your voice. Voice intelligibility, that includes articulation, the way you are articulating. Is your articulation clear? You are articulating each word separately. People are not getting confused. You're not running on the words. Your voice is loud enough that they can understand you. Your pronunciation is right. Because if you're making if you are pronouncing some word, in a wrong way, definitely the meaning will change. If I'm calling a desert a dessert and dessert a desert, it will definitely change the meaning. Vocalized pauses. I need to provide vocalized pauses. I need to take care of that I'm providing pauses for people for make them understand what I'm saying. Most of the time, these pauses are planned. If you stop somewhere, give a pause. What you are doing, you are giving your audience it's a kind of technique to let them focus on what you just said. Then, overuse of stock, like expressions. You are using too many expressions and making your presentation a hodgepodge of your expressions. People get confused. What are you doing? And then, substandard grammar. Your grammar is not accuracy is a problem. And then voice variability. You are changing voices. The rate of speech is different. Your volume is a problem. Your pitch or tone. It's one thing that one needs to be very careful about. When you raise your pitch or you lower down your pitch, there always is a reason. What kind of tone you are maintaining. All these things are important to take care of. How do you provide emphasis to something? What emphasis strategies are you using? Are you repeating on words? Are you saying it, okay, I repeat, or you are giving some clue and you say, see, I'm going to say something very important, or I need your attention for this. So what you're doing, you're providing clues for people to get alert for something you are going to say. What kind of emphasis do you provide? Or do you provide right kind of emphasis for your audience? Well, with these highlights of the presentation skills, we are done with our today's talk based on presentation skills. There are two things that I would want to say. One is that presentation is different from teaching. When you are teaching, you use visual aid and you make PowerPoint, but there your aim is different. In presentation, your aim is different. Maybe when I'm teaching, I would want you to listen to me and look at the slide too, because I think maybe if some of you are not able to understand me or you miss on something that I say, you are able to look at the screen the same thing and you can correspond you can develop a link between the two, and you can keep a record of what you are studying, because you are studying. In presentation, if your aim is that audience, they just listen to you and they can use PowerPoint to keep a track of what you are talking, so they can maintain the relationship between ideas, that this I talked first, this I'm going to talk next. So it depends on the presentation, what kind of presentation is this, so you design it accordingly. Number two is that this is regarding this this small item of our lecture that is always there. Either it's listening or it's watching. At times, if you feel that you cannot see things clear on the screen, you can use the PDF handout, the booklet that comes along with your CD, for you to have a clear idea of the activity that you are seeing on the screen. Because whenever we are doing a listing exercise and I'm asking you, okay students, you're going to have an activity, look at the question and you are going to listen to the audio and then answer the activity. What you need to do is, if you find then screen is the PowerPoint screen is not giving you a very clear visual of the activity, you can open up the booklet and the notes and can find the activity inside and can consider that for your clear ideas. Now, what you're going to watch now is a wonderful comparison that you are going to enjoy. It's a presentation that you are going to observe, you are going to witness. The lady gives presentation and you are going to see two versions of this presentation, the first version and the second version. And then you are going to compare both of these versions to find out which one is a better version. And you will analyze these two versions on this criteria for the lady's appearance. Do you find any change in her appearance in the first version and in the second version? She talks about the same thing with the same audience, in the same situation, with the same kind of content that she talks about. So it's easy for you to understand, is there any difference in her appearance? Is there any difference in her attitude, in the content? Is there difference in the tone that she uses in both of the versions? How is her articulation, the clarity of voice, the pace she talks with? How is she dealing with the questions in both the versions, and which one is better one and why? How is she giving answers? And how is she satisfying customers' questions? Well, and I'm going to invite you for a visual watch for this activity. Go ahead and watch the video.
Well, I guess we can get started.
Sorry I'm late.
No problem, we're just getting started. I'm Michelle Brewer from Webscape. As most of you know, we were asked by your management group to develop a website proposal for TJT. And I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you. I hope when I finish today, you'll want Webscape to work with you. I know each of you use the web to some degree in your work, so please stop me anytime you have any questions or comments. Studies show that a site has 20 seconds to make a positive impression on visitors and engage them to keep their interest. Webscape's first design principle then is make a lasting first impression, one that motivates the user to enter the site. In TJT's case, we want to capture the creativity and the dynamism you bring to your projects, but we need to keep in mind heavy graphics require time to download. So we propose a crisp, clean, easy to follow homepage. In page design, we need to keep in mind that many internet users need alternative text forms, and most also have a 14-inch monitor which accommodate a width of 640 pixels. And most also have a modem of 28.8. In addition to that, we also have...
Excuse me, Michelle, I'm lost.
Well, let me explain. The size of the modem just affects the downloading time, which is why we try to limit the graphics to 20 kilobytes. Did you have a question?
Yeah, what is a pixel?
Okay, I can see I'm just confusing you. Let's just go to the demo website and I'll just demonstrate what you need to know. So let's go to the web's homepage. The homepage displays the name of the company and the list of the services. And then if I click, oh wait a minute, this is supposed to be the homepage. And then if I click here, okay, and if I click here, yes, okay, here we go. We get back to the client page.
Can you always get back to the home page from a client page?
Uh-huh. It's at the bottom of every page. You just click the hotspot and you're back. Unless you're hooked up to a link outside the site. But we don't need to get into that today.
On this budget summary, how do you justify this $5,000 research fee?
Good research is expensive. But anyway, I hope the design aspects of the site I've shown you today have convinced you of the high quality of work we do at Webscape. So that's it. Any other questions? Well, I guess we can get started.
Sorry I'm late.
No problem, we're just getting started. I'm Michelle Brewer from Webscape. As most of you know, we were asked by your management group to develop a website proposal for TJT, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you. I hope when I finish today, you'll want Webscape to work with you. I know each of you use the web to some degree in your work, so please stop me anytime you have any questions or comments. First, I'd like to explain our planning for the site, and then I'd like to take you to a site we designed for another client, which will give you an idea of the work that you can expect from us. Studies show that a site has 20 seconds to make a positive impression on visitors and engage them to keep their interest. Webscape's first design principle then is make a lasting first impression, one that motivates the user to enter the site. In TJT's case, we want to capture the creativity and the dynamism you bring to your projects, but we need to keep in mind that heavy graphics require time to download, so we propose a crisp and clean, easy-to-follow homepage. Our second design principle involves efficiency. Information should never be more than 3 clicks away. So on the home page, viewers click easily to find the information they need quickly.
Before you go on, will the site work for our non-English speaking clients?
Good question. And the answer is absolutely. And this allows me to segue into our third design principle, which is know your audience. And by the way, we've designed over 20 sites that offer translations in multiple languages and appeal to very diverse audiences. I'll show you an example of this in one of our sites in just a few minutes. And since budgets are always an issue, we suggest constructing a basic site now and building in enhancements and ongoing additions as TJT grows. Here's a Webscape site that demonstrates my initial point about design. Let's go to the home page. See how quickly the page downloads and how easy it is to navigate? Okay, any questions?
Yes, on this budget summary, how do you justify this $5,000 research fee?
Well, we find that scrupulous research actually saves our clients money. Our fact-finding resources are exceptional, and an investment in research ensures that potential clients can access the information they need in a way that sells TJT services to them. So, we've briefly discussed Webscape's philosophy and approach to site design, and looked at a sample splash screen and homepage. I want to point out one critical final area. Contact us. This page motivates interaction between you and the user, each one a potential new client. Thank you for all your attention. Webscape offers prize-winning design, technical expertise, and cost-effective, easily updatable site construction. I look forward to working with you on this.
All right, welcome back. So did you enjoy watching this visual? And could you have your comparison? And what are your results? What do you think is better version? The first one or the second one? All right, you're right. The second version is the better version, but why? What is the difference of appearance? Could you find her that she's more composed? Look at her hair tie. It's more composed in the second version. Her hair style is not disturbing her in the second version. Her attitude is more positive and she's paying attention to listeners' feedback by looking at them. Although she uses the same content, but in the second version, she knows where she can exactly find something on her PowerPoint because she has done her practice. And she can exactly take the listeners to the page that she wants to instead of finding out where the page is and wasting a lot of time and then directing that. This is what she did in the first version. However, in the second version, you can find that she's more familiar with her content and more practiced. Look at the tone. She's more formal in her tone, her articulation is clearer, and she uses a pace in which her listeners can listen to her easily and understand. She listens to the question and give them due respect and answer those questions. And she satisfies her customers' questions and by answering them, and she gives a more logical answer. Look at the logic behind that she provides in the first version and the second version. When she's asked about the amount that goes into research, in the first version she says, well, research budgets are like that. But in the second, she gives a more logical answer to satisfy the question of her customer. All right, so that was all about today's talk, today's visual exercise, and our discussion regarding presentation skills. Although we could not discuss a lot, but we could discuss almost all the highlights of the skill, which we will continue in our coming lectures, inshallah. So what we learned in today's lecture, we try to understand what is the role of these set of things in presentation skills. That is eye contact, body language, use of voice. What are these 3 A's? How can we, use visual aids? How should we use visual aids? And how should you respond to questions? I will discuss these things in more detail in the coming lecture. However, this was all for today's talk, and I'll see you in the next class, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.